Good morning. A rabbi was giving some instruction to a classroom of children when he asked them this question: how do you know the night is over and the day has come? Little boy raised his hand. He said, Rabbi, I know. You know the night is over and the day has come when you can tell the difference between a horse and a donkey. The rabbi smiled, repeated the question. Little girl answered. She said, Rabbi, I know. You know the night is over and the day has come when in the early morning dawn you can tell the difference between an apple tree and a pear tree. The rabbi smiled, acknowledged the response, repeated the question. Silence. Little boy finally spoke up. Rabbi, we don't know the answer. Can you just give us the answer to that question? The rabbi got quiet and he looked into the eyes of all those little children, the eyes being the window to the soul. And he said, you know the night is not over and day is yet to come. When you look into the eyes and there you see your brother or your sister. For if you do not see your brother or your sister, you know the night is not over and the day is yet to come. I had a sense of that when I was a little kid. I think I was a very odd child because I didn't grow up in a church. We never went to church. Parents weren't spiritual. We didn't clang gongs or do Buddhist chants or worship or anything. But we had 20 acres of woods behind my house in Springfield, Illinois. And as a little boy, that was heaven for me. And that's when I became an environmentalist. Too big of a word then. I just love being in the woods. And I love the critters and I love the pond. And that started to change me. And I think not using these words that I'm using today, I had a sense, some bizarre sense, that we're all connected in some way. Now, to date me a little bit, which my hair does already, and this is odd. I really think it is. A counselor friend of mine certified me as an odd child, but you're okay now as an adult. I used to watch the part of Huntley Brinkley. Remember Huntley Brinkley when they were on NBC News? And they would give the statistics from the Vietnam War. Now, I had a map of the world in my room. I wanted that for some reason. So I would listen and see the statistics, U.S. soldiers, Vietnamese. I would go into my room and I would put my little hand on Vietnam. I wasn't praying. I don't know what I was doing. I just knew I put my hand on Vietnam. And countless times I would do that. So I always had this sense, why do we treat each other the way we treat? I never, ever, to this day, can understand that. Cannot understand that. So as I grew older, my life was really a life of service. In high school, I led some out to elderly people and cleaning windows and things like that. I spent 4 years, 1974 to 1978, at Purdue University, West Lafayette. And I had an elective class, Biology 101 and 102, Dr. Al Chiskin. It was an elective, so about 400 students were in this large lecture hall, the Lilly Building on State Street. And me and a couple of my buddies would often be sitting in the back, and sometimes we would often cut up a little bit. And a couple of different times he called us out. You guys in the back, start listening. You guys in the back, stop talking. And we always wondered, how does he know we're talking? Then I heard, because by now I was studying the life of Dr. King and the nonviolent movement. That wasn't my major at all. I was studying Gandhi. I remember at 13, I was 13 years old when Robert Kennedy, the Senator Robert Kennedy, was assassinated. And I saw it on the news, and I had tears rolling down my face. Now, what 13-year-old would have that kind of a concept? Other than what little I remember of that, he was very inspiring to me. And he's dead. And that's what happened. So I've always had this bent for that. So back to Dr. Chiskin. And his wife Martha was also a biology professor at Purdue University. Now they were different. They were kind of the talk of the campus because also nice Jewish couple who adopted 4 black children. And so that was rare back then. And we thought, well, that's kind of cool. He's hip, you know. Then someone told me, did you know that he does biological research on the effects of torture for political prisoners for Amnesty International? I said, no. I had already heard of Amnesty. That piqued my interest. So what I decided to do, this professor who I thought was rather dull, and we talked in his class, but now Amnesty International, I decided to set an appointment with him. I remember it was a winter day. I went in at 2, got out at 4. It was already getting dark. It was dark. There was snow on the ground, and I was shaken when I left that meeting. I went to that meeting fully expecting to get details on Amnesty International. I joined that, which I ended up doing. But what he wanted to do is tell me why he got involved with Amnesty International. He got involved in Amnesty International because in 1963, he would use this phrase over and over, I was a white Jewish man with a PhD from Princeton University, getting ready to go to Purdue University to teach. But I decided to be a bondsman for Dr. Martin Luther King in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963. And then he proceeded to tell me the second day he was there being a bondsman, he was abducted by some citizens of Birmingham. He found out later one was a mailman, one owned a retail shop of some kind, a couple of other people, regular jobs, regular people. And for over 24 hours, they repeatedly tortured him with electric cattle prods. That's why he couldn't have children. He was sterile. And that's why he heard us talk, because he's lost most of his hearing. He lip reads. I had no idea. But try to imagine 2 hours of him telling me detail by detail what happened to him. He said, the reason I'm doing this is because although I admire your spirit, I love to see college kids who want to get out there and make a difference, but I want you to know it's real and it's ugly, and you need to know that. And he made a statement that I thought about when the Tea Party really started rising up in a big way. He said, you know, racism is still here. It's still here. And just like that snow on the ground outside during winter, and the plants are dormant underneath, and they're going to start to come up, it'll start coming up again. You just need to know that. So that made a profound difference in my life. And so I've always had that heart for that. I got involved as a pastor earlier here in the Indianapolis area with racial reconciliation, met a lot of cool people there, Hindu people, rabbis, black pastors. Some are still friends today. So I've always had that bent for that. And then when I brought Andrew Harvey here in 2007, who's kind of known as the architect for sacred activism, Andrew is kind of this eccentric guy. I remember talking to a Unitarian pastor who was visiting UUI at the time, and Stephen Sinclair, and he and I were having some lunch, and I told him I was bringing Andrew Harvey, and he started laughing. He said, you're bringing Andrew Harvey to Indianapolis? He's a flaming gay man. How's he going to be received in Indianapolis? And I started to get nervous. I said, well, I got to sell tickets. Really? Is that going to be a problem? So it wasn't. We rented out CTS, and we had a public meeting in their little auditorium there, and then we had a 2-day intensive on sacred activism. All I'm going to do today, no worries, I'll take 20 minutes, is kind of give an overview, the feel of what that is for me, and not the details of everything. But he's the architect of that. And what I got out of that workshop, though, I define sacred activism as this. It's the fusion of the inner work of heart with outer service in the world. It's not planning an activist day once a month and we're going to go out and do something good. It's doing it every day. Inner work of heart. What does that mean? That means every day have an inner practice. It could be meditation, silence, prayer, reading something contemplative, walking in the woods, yoga, qigong, inner work of heart with outer service in the world every day. Here's a simple example. When I started getting a hold of this and started learning from so many other people, because I am, by the way, as of today, still learning, ING, from so many other people, back in the day when Marsh was still around, there was a big Marsh grocery store in Greenwood. I was living in Greenwood at the time, and I decided to do something I'd never done before. I tend to be rather introverted, except when I'm speaking. But I tend to be an introvert. So I decided to walk up. There was a assisted living bus, dropped off all the people so they can do their shopping in the lanes and all that. And there was this cute, adorable old lady with white hair. It almost glowed. And I decided to do something, spur of the moment. I walked up to her and I said, "Ma'am, do you know you have the most beautiful white hair?" And she goes, "I do?" I said, "You do." And I walked out of there as fast as I could go. When I got out to my car, I felt like the Lone Ranger of love. It's like, yeah, love bombs everywhere. So I started to pick on elderly people at first because I felt they were safe. And then I had a business friend guy told me about these cards you could get. I think you got them at Kmart at the time, but inspirational encouragement. So I started carrying them in my pockets, and I just would pass them out, maybe not even say anything. But that's when I developed the philosophy, which I still do to this day. And by the way, this is activism. I'm getting to that point where every day give something away. Every day give something away. A compliment. Maybe while you're in a checkout lane, you can vibe love to the person next to you. If you're introverted and not in the mood to want to say anything and embarrass yourself, every day give something away. Little cards, little compliments, every day. And then I started thinking, because I had a vision. I've had two visions in my life. This is the second vision. When I moved from Greenwood up to Indianapolis, and I lived in the hood, although the hood where I lived is kind of revitalized, 32nd and Delaware, I was renting the yellow house. We called it the yellow house because it was a two-story yellow house. And my friend Rod Smith, who was a South African and Tabernacle Presbyterian, brought him over. And then he started writing editorials for the Star. Rod was a really cool guy. And he was South African. He knew what apartheid was all about. He ended up adopting for his own sons 2 black children who were in need. They're young, handsome adults to this day. But that's the house I lived in for a while. But it was the city, and my car was parked outside, and there was those lamp lights looking over it. And for some reason, I had just started some hospice work. I was still finishing up with some coaching work, and I had a patient and a client I was stumped with. And I looked out the window, and I saw my car, and what came to me, I call it spirit. It could be the universe. I wasn't drinking, so it wasn't that. But I heard, "Richard, you're making it too hard. Be a lamplight. Just shine and allow people to come out of the dark into the light, out of the cold into the warmth, and just love them." So I thought, wow. So the next day, I see a patient that I had a hard time communicating because he couldn't verbally communicate, and I was still new at the hospice game. And he could move his lips like he was trying to talk because he was cognizant, but he couldn't. So I go in there, and already my heart is changing. And again, dates the story, we carried pagers, no cell phones, turned the pager off, and so I'm sitting with him. And I get quiet. And all of a sudden, because I've never done this before at the time, I do it all the time now, I sang to him. I happen to know he was a Christian. The only song that came to me was, "Jesus loves me, this I know." And all of a sudden, his lips are moving. Like he can't open his mouth, but like he's singing a song. And he has tears rolling down his face. Then I have tears rolling down my face. And that's when I learned what it was like to communicate heart to heart. So sometimes words get in the way. And I later learned that Stephen Levine had really developed that as a practice and was teaching nurses how to do that when he was doing his death and dying work. But it was powerful. So all of these have started to change my life, and that's when I came up with that quote, "The world now is too dangerous and too beautiful for anything but love." And auspicious is a word that deep ecologists often use. I love that word, auspicious. They would say, in the midst of great change, it's an auspicious time to be alive. I love what Carl Jung has to say. Carl Jung said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other." Now think about this. When confronted with our own mortality and inner wounds, we have 2 options. We either lash out at others with pain, or choose the power of love to heal ourselves and then others. And now I'm reminded of Gandhi saying, be the peace, be the peace, be the peace you want to see in the world. I always tell people who want to go to the streets or go to protests, worthy protests, I said, don't you dare go if you're angry. Don't you dare go if you're angry. Do your inner work first. Go there out of love. It's a fierce love, to be sure, but go there out of love. Jesus modeled it. Gandhi learned it from Jesus and developed his own things from Hinduism. King learned it from Jesus and Gandhi. Nonviolent movement, which I still am amazed of the courageous people that hit the streets during that time. Only by finding the love within can we provide the love that will save the world. Now think about this also. For a healthier world to be possible, we need to dream big. We need to dream big. We get so stuck in cogs. I see that in Washington now more than ever. I think it was Goethe that said, dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of people. Dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of people. People's hearts want to be moved. That's why they followed the leaders that they did at the time. The Gandhis, the Kings, even Senator Kennedy at the time. And I'm not political this morning. I'm not political. I'm just saying there are inspiring people who appeal to our higher angels, not our worst demons. Our higher angels, and that's what we need to be about. Because here's the thing, the American dream is not a material thing. It's the fact that we have the right to dream at all. In ending slavery, we committed to the dream. In giving women the right to vote, we committed to the dream. In passing civil rights legislation, we committed to the dream. Every generation of Americans plays out the struggle between the forces that would expand the dream and those that would hold it back. It's playing out today big time. We see it on our TV screens. And dreams do not extend through armies or politics. They fly on the wings of passion. So what's your dream? What do you stand for? Well, I stand for this. Despite the senseless acts of violence that are happening, this world is not a tragic mistake. With all its flaws, it is a sacred path to our destiny as human beings. An epic paradigm shift is unfolding, and I truly believe that. Quietly sometimes, consciousness is at the heart of this shift, and actions is its worldly expression. So I pray that may we rekindle our sense of hope and possibility. May we keep our hearts and minds inspired through daily practice, because it's going to take daily practice. Don't watch the news too much. Andrew taught us back in 2007, look at the darkness. In other words, know what's going on, but don't stare at it, because it'll stare right back at you. May we keep our hearts and minds inspired through daily practice, stand together in community to share dreams, celebrate life, implement action, which is why I so believe churches like this must stay together and to grow as much as you can, because we're heading into a time, you know this, I'm not sharing anything you don't know. We need each other. We truly need each other now more than ever, but also to inspire, and also in the midst of everything we're seeing, to also practice joy and celebration. Never was that model better than Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. When I had the joy of having Betty Williams on my radio show, she won the Peace Prize in Northern Ireland for Peace People USA back in 1978. She would say when the laureates would all get together, you know, kind of dignified and sophisticated, off on the side would be Archbishop Tutu and Dalai Lama pushing each other out of chairs, acting like little kids. And I would hear stories, people who've gone to some of the events when Tutu was speaking. He would be speaking about what he learned from apartheid, and he would share some of those horrendous stories. That was going on. He inspired them. He's done. Music's up. He's the first one on the dance floor. That's hard to do, right? Inner work of heart with outer service in the world, crying, letting our hearts break with also joy, hanging out with kids and grandkids that act goofy all the time and remind us we should act goofy too. That's what we're called to do, to walk that path. So the call goes out. Call's been going out, but the call goes out to all men and women and young people, especially young people, to wipe the sleep from their eyes and to awaken to their own greatness and to become warriors of the heart. Now, I'll close with this. And this was written by Brian Piergrass. It's called Love Now, the New Religion of the 21st Century. On the surface of the world right now, there is war and violence, and things seem dark, but calmly and quietly, at the same time, something else is happening underground. An inner revolution is taking place, and certain individuals are being called to a higher light. It's a silent revolution from the inside out, from the ground up. It is time for me to reveal myself. I'm an embedded agent of a secret, undercover, clandestine global operation, a spiritual conspiracy. We have sleeper cells in every nation on the planet. You won't see us on TV. You won't read about us in the newspaper. You won't hear about us on the radio. We don't seek any glory. We don't wear any uniform. We come in all shapes and sizes, colors and styles. Most of us work anonymously. We are quietly working behind the scenes in every country and culture of the world. Cities big and small, mountains and valleys, and farms and villages, tribes and remote islands. You could pass by one of us on the street and not even notice. We go undercover. We remain behind the scenes. It is of no concern to us who takes the final credit, but simply that the work gets done. Occasionally, we spot each other in the street. We give a nod and continue on our way so no one will notice. Maybe one of these things. During the day, many of us pretend we have normal jobs, but behind the false storefront at night is where the real work takes place. Some call us the conscious army. We are slowly creating a new world with the power of our minds and hearts. We follow with passion and joy our orders from the central command, the spiritual intelligence agency. We are dropping soft, secret love bombs when no one is looking. Poems, hugs, music, photography, painting, movies, articles, Dick Wolfsey. Oh, wow, he wrote that in there. Sorry. Kind words, smiles, meditation and prayer, dance, social activism, websites, blogs, random acts of kindness. We each express ourselves in our own unique ways with our own unique gifts and talents. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's the motto that fills our hearts. We know it is the only way real transformation takes place. We know that quietly and humbly we have the power of all the oceans combined. Our work is slow and meticulous, like the formation of mountains. It's not even visible at first glance, and yet with its entire tectonic plates shall be moved in the centuries to come. Love is the new religion of the 21st century. You don't have to be a highly educated person or have an exceptional knowledge to understand it. It comes from the intelligence of the heart, embedded in the timeless evolutionary pulse of all human beings. Be the change you want to see in the world. Nobody else can do it for you. We are now recruiting. Perhaps you'll join us, or already have. All are welcome. The door is open, and blessed be.